welcome to our next panel. I think we are missing a panelist. So if she happens to come join us, that's fine. It's fine. So I had the pleasure of doing a session very similar to this last year, and I'm quite excited to have, a new group of women here to discuss some of the stuff that's affecting us within the industry. So I'm going to leave time for questions at the end. So if anyone does have a question that they, kind of come up with it in the process of us talking, I'll come to you at the end and you can put your hands up and I will run around with the microphone. So I think it's probably best that we start with a quick introduction from each of our panelists. And Ruth, let's start with you. If you could introduce who you are and what you do, please.
So my name is Ruth. I'm based in Dublin. I'm a qualified air conditioning engineer. I started the trade in 2007, qualified in 2011, and I'm one of only 6 women in Ireland who are qualified and have completed the trade. So, best trade ever.
Yes, big round of applause.
Hi, everyone. My name is Margaret Rafter, and I am a consultant sales engineer with Mitsubishi Electric. I am a building service engineer also. I started in 2003 with a company called York Johnson Controls. So my background would have been chillers and ventilation, which I still kind of work on as well today, but mostly specification side and selection and design.
Hi everyone, my name's Chloe. I work for a company called Delta T Refrigeration. And yeah, I've only been in this industry 18 months to 2 years. So by far the most junior on the panel, but have really got stuck in. So always something to say.
So I'm Lizzie Dunlop. I work at Danfoss. I'm a key account manager. I've been in the industry 9 years, started at one of the wholesalers and kind of progressed through that way. But I'm a qualified mechanical engineering to trade as well.
Very good.
Brilliant. So it's so nice to see that we've got, a nice range of experiences, different kind of parts of the industry, all of that kind of thing. So let's start with why you got into the industry. I asked this on the last panel, and Stephen in his intro was talking about how a lot of people have a person or something that really kind of made them go, I want to do this. So I'd love to hear from each of you in turn, like how you got into the industry. Lizzie, let's start with you down the end.
Is this even? Yeah, this one's on. So yeah, I fell into the industry like a lot of people here, unless you've got family or you know about the industry. I sort of fell into it. I finished my degree in engineering and didn't know what I was going to do. Didn't want to sit behind a desk all day. I found a trainee position at HRP in Glasgow and they were going to teach me all about fridge because obviously mechanical and fridge is slightly different. And then, yeah, I fell in love with it and just progressed. So I done trainee engineer, sales engineer there for 1 year before becoming national sales manager for them, looking after the OEM division. And then 5 years ago, during COVID, there was a job opportunity at Danfoss and it's Danfoss. So I sort of applied and was hoping that I'd get it. And then, yeah, I've been at Danfoss ever since. Don't plan on leaving either.
Brilliant. Chloe?
So again, accidentally came into the industry, which I actually think is a big problem. I think people shouldn't just be falling into it with how amazing it is. But I was working as a water consultant in London and was fed up of telling people that they needed to fix things when I wanted to be the person to fix it. So I then started to do a technical job in the water industry. But again, it wasn't technical enough, it wasn't challenging enough, and it kind of bottomed out. To which I was having a conversation with my father, who's actually on the front row here, who said, "Oh, Chloe, we're so busy. I really could do with your help." And he was joking. And I thought, do you know what? Maybe it's time. Maybe this is a sign. And so that was it. I took myself, moved from London, back up to Rugby from where I'm from, and kind of hit the tools and have never looked back. Best decision I ever made.
Great.
Yeah, kind of similar. I kind of fell into it. I went straight from school to work in York as a receptionist. And then I had various different roles. I was working on the service committee or on the service side of things, and then in sales support. And then I went back to DIT Bolton Street to do building services engineering part-time. And then when I qualified, I went into a direct sales role and then started working with consultants. So it was never something, I was never taking apart radios or when I was small saying I want to be an engineer. As Chloe said, I think we shouldn't be falling into it. It should be kind of, there as an option when you're in primary school. I think we're kind of hitting it too late when you're, already a teenager, when you're already in secondary school. So yeah, again, best decision I ever made was going back to, get qualified, because it really helps me when I'm, I suppose, working with consultants who are also engineers, So, yeah, slightly different background, but kind of similar at the same time as well.
I actually came through it a different way. I wanted to join the fire brigade. And the fire brigade had always said that they liked people with a trade background. So I went to the local, it was the Foss Centre at the time, and applied for a load of different jobs. Ended up getting a couple of interviews and ended up getting a job with a refrigeration company. And just even to this day, people don't respect the refrigeration trade because the amount of times I get asked, "Are you an electrician? Are you an electrician?" I'm like, "No, it is its own trade. It is its own trade." But that's how I got into it.
Okay, brilliant. So this is something that we hear a lot. And as you discussed, a lot of people do just kind of fall into the industry, which is obviously not ideal. It would be brilliant if people were, as you said, being exposed to the industry and saying to themselves, actually, I can see myself in this. And I think we'll come on to that discussion more in a bit when we talk about, bringing more people into the industry, especially women. But I'd love to know about your experiences from all of you about being a woman in this industry, good and bad. I'm sure you have experiences of both. But yeah, so what has it been like? Ruth, let's start with you. What has it been like being a woman within this industry? And what's that been like?
It's a lot better now. I still to this day, and I hate to say it, it is mostly women in offices who'll be like, "Oh, do you want me to take that ladder for you?" Or, "Wow, like you're doing this job," and you're just like, "Yeah, I've been doing this job for nearly 20 years now." So it's no difference to me. But I remember at the start getting a lot of questions. I vividly remember one day one of the guys saying to me, I was only in the trade maybe 2 years, and I remember him turning around to me in the van and just being like, "Why didn't you become a hairdresser or a nurse?" And I was just like,
Wow.
I had no interest in it. I ended up reporting that guy for bullying months later. But like it is questions like that, and you're just like, there's nothing to stop women getting into this job. And even as much as I give out at times about like health and safety and paper pushers and all that, with the amount of backing and people in the trade, you'll never be left to do something by yourself that you're not comfortable with. There's always going to be someone there to help you.
Brilliant. Margaret?
Yeah, I guess I've been really lucky as well. I've had really good allies around me and support. I forgot to mention that I'm the president of the Institute of Refrigeration Ireland as well. I don't know how I forgot that. But by joining the IRI, that was a huge support network for me. And it was a huge moment for me to find other people that were similar, do you know what I mean? And from the industry as well. But yeah, I mean, I have had good experiences and bad experiences. And most of the time, the bad experiences are just people that aren't familiar with the trade either and aren't familiar with, I suppose, they don't see the representation of women. Okay. So because we're not represented all the time, it is getting better. And when I started in 2003, there was very few women and there was no female engineers. I think Jacinta Caden was the first girl I met in the industry. And she was one of the few that did the refrigeration course in Ireland. And one of the 6 women that qualified. But for all that, being part of an industry and part of a network like the IRI or the IRWAR, that really, really helped. And I think just finding that support network really, really helped as well.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I love a network, to be honest with you. But I'd say my experience has been overwhelmingly positive coming into the industry in the past 18 months. I mean, obviously when you guys started, it was a lot, longer before I have. So thanks for the work that you've done, I suppose, in that. Like you really are trailblazing. But I'd say 98% of the men or the women that I meet, and particularly the men, because it's very male dominated, they want to support me. They want to see me succeed. And they help me if I need help and you ask for it and you've got the confidence to ask for it. So it's the one-off person that's like, "Oh, you couldn't lift this or you couldn't do that." And it's like, nah, you don't know me. And if I can't lift it, you probably shouldn't be lifting it from a safety perspective. So yeah, I'd say I'm celebrated more than anything for being so rare, which is quite nice.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
I've had good and bad, like everyone. Just yesterday, I'm standing on the stand and they assume that I'm the marketing lady, which is not a bad thing, but our marketing person's a man. And I'm like, nope, that's him. I look after that thing. And they just went, oh, okay then. So yeah, it's a complete mixture of good and bad. I was in Ireland at the start of the year, and I was telling Ruth this earlier, and I got handed the kettle at the trade day and was also asked multiple times if I'm a time-served engineer. And the other two sales reps, there were men selling tools, were not asked that question. And I was the only one out of three of us that's a qualified engineer. So there's still a way to go, but we do have a lot of allies like Steve Gill, John Broughton up at Danfoss. I wouldn't be at Danfoss if it wasn't for that man. So yeah, these people all really do promote and push us, and we've got the Women in RACHP network, and like Maggie, I kind of forgot to say that I'm the vice chair of IOR Scotland. So we are out there. Can't believe we both forgot that.
It's just another one of our jobs.
Yeah, just one of the many jobs we do, many hats. But yeah, we are out there. We are trying to get more represented. And like you say, it's just hard getting into the schools and telling people, young ones, that this is a job path. My nephews are 5 and 7, and they just know that their auntie's an engineer. So to them, it's no different. So it's just making sure young kids these days are seeing that. And it is getting more and more normal, but there's still a way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So touched on a few really interesting things here. So this panel last year, we actually had a man on the panel, on the women's panel, which was unusual, but it did kind of bring the conversation around to male allies. And I do want to touch on that because I think it's an important conversation to have, because men obviously hold a lot of power, not just because of their numbers, but because they do tend to be listened to. And I was at an event on Tuesday earlier this week, and we had a big discussion about male allies. And I would just love to know, obviously, as you've already touched on it, about having that. How important has that been for you to have that support?
It's been amazing. So I wouldn't be on this panel today if Steve Gill hadn't pestered me for the last however many years. I probably wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, he's pestered all of us at times to either be on this amazing panels and do all that, to be on this one. Yeah, if it wasn't for these people championing us, we probably wouldn't realise that that's what we should be doing and putting ourselves in those rooms. We would probably just kind of slope it back a wee bit. But yeah, it's people like Steve and Steve Benton as well, and all these people that really champion us to actually get out there and speak up.
Brilliant. Anyone else have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I would just say, even like, I can see pretty much this whole back row here. These are all people that I know from Instagram that are just tradespeople supporting tradespeople, and it's just, yeah, like they're no different, being like, oh, whatever. Like, it's, people exist, groups exist, and like I think it harps back to, you have to see it to know that you can do it.
Anything to add? Two of you about so okay, something that came up in the last session was about the importance of community, and I think that's a broader thing. Margaret, you've already kind of touched on it about how important it is for us to all support one another within the industry. What has that been like? How many of you are part of women's networks, for example, and what's that been like? Okay, brilliant.
Yeah, that's been amazing.
Yeah.
Because it definitely was something that we didn't have when I was first starting out. So we were at Engineers Ireland, had one last Friday. So it's multiple disciplines. It's not only building services, not only refrigeration, it's civil, it's all other mechanical engineering. And there was 250 women in that room, 250 engineers, should I say. And it was just incredible, and I see it time and time again. I work with consultants, and a lot of my network are now female. They're now women, Now, there is still a lot of men, obviously. And I never badmouth men. I love men, just to say. But I've the men would be, some of the men or role models I have are male. Do you know what I mean? But what I would say would be, probably, it's nice to see the men here, you know what I mean? And that the group that's here at this Women in Engineering talk isn't just men. So we need allies to attend those events as well. So it would be great to see more, I think, men at those networking events as well, and not just women. And then eventually we won't have to say or differentiate it, So, yeah.
Yeah, I think where there's only two of us in our company, and I don't have any female engineers around me, something like the Women in RACHP group and the amazing like events that they set up sometimes. Like we went to, I can see a Carter person in the audience here. We went to Carter's last year and had a tour, and just the opportunity to all just be in the same room, bounce off each other, have a chat. It's really lovely. It's lovely to be around because you don't get that. I don't get that. I have one friend here on the front row who's my female engineer friend, and I bounce off her. But outside of that, the people are a lot older than me, have very different life experiences to me. And yeah, the Women in Cooling Networks are amazing. The other one, of course, the International Women in Cooling Network, which has got the mentorship program. I'm finding that a lot of people don't feel like they're capable enough to sign up as a mentor. They're signing up as like a mentee because they don't back themselves. And I think that lack of confidence, I think it's very common in women. And I think you kind of have to, it was only last week in Milan when I was talking to some of the other girls that were there, and she was like, oh, I don't know if I should be a mentor. And I was watching her do a talk thinking, oh my God, this woman is so inspiring. She's got so much confidence and what she's talking about is so relevant that she just didn't even think she should be. I think that's a big problem amongst women that we probably need to sort out. And it's about self-generating that confidence. Put yourself down as a mentor. You're going to help someone out there. So yeah, I think that's a great network and a good one to be part of.
You're
Fantastic
going to have
points.
to ask Ruth to do that now after this today.
Yeah, come on, Ruth.
You'd be brilliant, Ruth.
Good. I've signed you up there. All right.
I was invited to one of the first Women in RACHP networking events 8 years ago by Steve, and Sam Paris is hiding over there. She could take a cohort of 8 trainee females, I think it was, in the end, and all at different roles and different experiences in their lives and things. And we all went to it at Cool Concerns, and that's where I met Lisa and Sam for the first time. And it would kind of give me my first flurry properly into the women's network. And they've done them every year since. And it was really cool to be hands-on, because a lot of us are more technical based or office based, some of them. So it was really nice to get a hands-on experience, just sitting there brazing and things like that. So more of those events, I know that they're continuing to do them up and down the country. We do them in Scotland, where it's more of a networking lunch, and we bring in inspirational women like Linda McVitie, who's one of the 4 kind of founders of refrigeration in the UK. So yeah, it's pretty cool to have these kind of people that we can look up to.
Yeah, absolutely. Ruth, anything to add to that?
I did not know about this mentorship thing.
Wow,
Live and learn.
I'll look into it. I'll look into it.
Brilliant. So what can we do to encourage more women into the sector in all roles? Ruth, as you've got the microphone, I'll let you go first. Obviously there's a lot already being done. There's a lot that, we discussed earlier. People kind of fall into this industry. So what can we do to encourage young women into it, to actually make a choice to come and be an engineer or work in the industry in another respect?
I think as Mag mentioned earlier, with my job, I've been around to, there's a couple of, I don't know if you'd call them trade shows, but there were like work days that they had in secondary schools, and like they had like various companies that had set up. So I was on a couple of stands for them. Probably primary school is probably, you've been involved in some STEM things, Mags, that's probably actually better for this one.
I think as you say, the shows for schools, for secondary school is brilliant, and they definitely need to keep doing that. But I have this amazing badge actually on me today. I did this amazing training with Alexandra Knight, who set up Stamazing, and she is just incredible. She's an engineer herself. And she set up this program that you take on for 6 weeks. And basically you go into primary schools and you do simple experiments with them using materials that you can find in the classroom and find at home. And they see a female engineer coming in once a week for 6 weeks, and you do different types of experiments, all science, technology, engineering and math. And that's incredible. That one's been amazing. I've done 2 or 3 trips now into my local school, and I've kids walking down the road saying, there's the engineer Mags, and I'm going to be an engineer one day. And it's incredible. It is amazing. So I think early education, go out, show them what types of engineering it is, and be honest with them, you get paid really well as well. Do you know what I mean? It's a good job. Do you know what I mean? You have a good quality of life. You have an opportunity to be creative. Do you know what I mean? And work with your hands. You know what I mean? So you meet friends. You can travel the world. So I think early education, definitely going in and talking to the young kids.
I definitely second that. I've done the STEMazing as well, but I think it also relies on your company giving you the time to go and do it. So you might work for a big company sat in the audience right now, and there's definitely going to be maybe women at your company, and it's aimed at women because you're trying to increase the representation. You're trying to normalize it for young boys and young girls. It should be normal for a young boy to grow up and see women in these positions. So do you know someone? Do you know someone at your company who could go and do that? Is your company the kind of company that will allow people to go off and go into their school and reach out? Because out of the 4 or 5 schools I reached out to, every single one of them came back and wanted me to go and do it. The kids that I was talking to hadn't heard of sustainability. They didn't know what a fridge engineer was. They didn't have a clue. And I think it has to start early. And yeah, just kind of echoing everything that you said, really.
Again, I done STEMazing, went into the schools. I done it, just before we went into the schools. So I was one of the first cohorts and we had to do it all online, which was terrifying. Because you couldn't interact with them quite as easily as seeing them in the classroom. And then I done the classroom day and I have never had a headache like it in my life. But it was amazing, like you say, to see them and them to see you and see that kind of female engineer doing day-to-day experiments with them. I was really fortunate that at my school, my technology teacher, so woodwork, metalwork, graphic design teacher, she was female. She's the reason I wanted to be an engineer. I looked at her. She was terrifying as well. And I went, I want to be like her. Because she was 5 foot nothing. She scared everyone. And I was like, that's who I want to be when I'm older, kind of thing. And then that's how I fell into engineering. But most people, like we've said, just fall into it accidentally into this industry. We need to kind of push it at a young age that refrigeration and aircon is a valid industry. Everybody knows about electricians, they know about plumbers, but they don't necessarily know about heat pumps and refrigeration and air conditioning engineers.
Yeah, absolutely. Lizzie, let's stay with you for a second. Tell us more about the judging you do and the competitions that you've been part of.
Yeah, so I've been really fortunate that when I first started at HRP, was put up by Sam Paris again for the Trainee of the Year Awards about 8.5 years ago. And it was a really cool process. I got to do the whole application from start to finish. Didn't win, but was one of the top 10. Again, one of the only female in the group. Was handed a vac pump at the end of it. It was a bit random. But then, since then, there was the WES 50 year. I was involved in the Trainee of the Year's all-female judging panel that year with Sam. And that was a really cool experience to actually see it from the other side and realise why I didn't win. And I will be judging it again this year for the first time in a long time. And I'm really excited to be involved in that one. We also have our own IOR Scotland Apprentice of the Year category that's only open to Scottish engineers because they kind of get forgotten about a little bit or a little bit far away from everything. And our technical guys and our team really, it's a strict one. And we've only had, I think, 2 females in the whole history of that competition ever win it. And I think in the last 2 years, I've only had 1 application. In the last, 5 years, I've had 1 female application come in. So yeah, we're still in Scotland, even that we don't have many female engineers on the tools.
Do you think those competitions are important for that kind of representation and seeing, more women in the industry? I appreciate that you haven't necessarily had as many applications as you would like, but how important are these competitions for the next generation as well as for women?
It's brilliant. I've also helped with the WorldSkills as well. Forgot about that one. And I've been judging it all the way through that as well. And it's amazing to see people like Luke Hale, who came silver last year, progress from this kind of shy young boy into this fully fledged engineer that knows a lot more technical than other people that I know have been in the industry 20, 30 years kind of thing. And his networking abilities and his capabilities as well. It's also given those people numbers. Not many apprentices can turn around and say, oh, I've got contacts for someone at Danfoss, for example. And that's where networking comes in, and Luke's amazing at it. Along with Scott Barentine, he also came silver a few years ago in the regional competition in Scotland. And that was great to have one guy from Scotland come down and do it. But again, these companies allowing them the time and the networking abilities to have these contacts at Danfoss, at Mitsubishi Electric, at Fujitsu, these massive companies that they just wouldn't have the access to otherwise and would have to go through a wholesaler or whatnot to get to. At least they can come directly to us and speak to the technical people that they need to get hold of.
Brilliant. So I have so many more questions, but I thought I'd open it up to the audience. If anyone has a question, I can pass over the microphone.
What I wanted to ask was, it's actually to Lizzie. You said you put yourself forward for these student awards and you knew when you saw the entrance, you knew you wouldn't win. Knowing what you know now, is there something you would have done differently in the application that you think could have pushed you further forward up the list?
Yeah, completely. I would have went on more site visits. So I'd done a handful of site visits beforehand, but I would have actually contacted my local engineers and went, can I come to site with you and get more hands-on? And I think that would have really pushed my application higher. There's now a category for sales engineers. Back when I applied, there wasn't. So I was going in up against all these apprentices that were on sites day in, day out. So their applications were this thick compared to my 1 or 2 pages of the few sites I'd been on. So yeah, I would ask more companies, can I come out to site and have a play about?
So can I just ask a follow-up as well? Could I just ask, when you look at the applications, do you find that maybe women are a little bit more reticent about saying how great they are and maybe we need to big ourselves up a bit more?
Yeah, the applications I've seen from women, they're a little bit more, I don't really know what I want to do. Rather than some of the guys are like, oh, well, this is where I want to go. Women are like, oh, but I want to take this path. And I think that's just us being indecisive because there is so many options in this industry. But I think we just need to kind of, if you're putting an application in to apply for one of these competitions and things, you just need to have a clear path of what you want out of the industry.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone?
So obviously listen to what you say, it's all fantastic. Is there anything you would have done differently had you known sort of where you are now to where you were, say, 20, 30 years ago or what have you? Would you have taken a different path? Would you have made different choices? Or you kind of think that it's kind of all accumulated and you are where you are and that's where you should be?
I'd have went on the tools rather than going to uni for 5 years. So I would have. I'd have probably still ended up here, but I ended up here quicker. And then 5 years at uni. Luckily, we don't have debt in Scotland. We get to go for free, so that's all good. But yeah.
I think something I want to change going forwards would be my commitment to getting in the schools and the STEM. I think it's so easy to just let it kind of pass by and everybody knows and talks about this thing that we should be doing, but actually doing it. You know, like I met a guy actually at the Institute of Refrigeration dinner and he said, right, what I do is 1 week every quarter or 1 day every quarter, I dedicate to STEM outreach. So whether that be I look around in the local area and see if I can go and pitch up and, you know, be at a careers fair or if I go into a school and I help. I think that's something I would like to do going forward, to make sure I actually have a plan and prioritise it if it's something that you're really dedicated to doing. Again, probably wouldn't have gone to uni. Well, I had a great time, but it's like, 50 grand's worth of debt. No one at school was telling me, oh, you should go to college, do this option. I'd have ended up here, I think. Yeah. I really would. So...
Yeah, I think the same. I probably would have joined the IRI sooner anyway. I definitely would have went to college sooner as well. And I think you touched on this about like sometimes we don't believe in ourselves enough. I wish I was braver when I was younger, you know what I mean? And tried to, like I heard recently at an event, sometimes if a man's applying for a job and he can't do a few things on the list, he'll just go for it and apply for it anyway. Whereas if women are applying for a role, they'll look at it and they'll say, I can't do that, so I'm not going to apply for it. Whereas we should just apply. Do you know what I mean? Step outside your comfort zone because that's where you grow and that's where everything happens, you know? So yeah, I think do it sooner, believe in yourself and have way more confidence than, have the confidence I have now.
Yeah. The only thing I can think of, it might sound strange, but actually caring about the trade. I only kind of, not that I didn't properly care about it, but I took a real interest in it probably 2018 or so. Before that, like I said, it's not that I didn't care, but I'm trying to think of a way to word it.
Just a job.
Yeah, exactly. Like before it was like just a job, but now I'm just like, no, it's the amount of avenues you can go down and specialise in. You could be chillers, VRF, anything. I would just say I wish I had taken more of a keen interest in the trade and the variety of the work years ago.
And start your Instagram, I suppose, as well. Like, when did you start that?
Anybody else?
Yes.
Hiya, great panel, fantastic, really motivating. I'm co-chair of the Women in RACHP and we're quite small, but I'd really like to know from 4 very successful women in our industry, what more could we do for you?
We've touched on it previously. Well, the networking lunches, I think they go down a treat, and having someone like Lisa Jane talking at it, or Sam Paris, or Linda McVitie. I know we had Karen Perry in the past and things like that in Scotland, but having these people go in and just say, oh, this is how I fell into it, and then having those people, it kind of brings that community aspect. I think doing them and also having them dotted around the countries, including Ireland, would be great. Because like I say, I'm a bit like the guys. We get forgotten about way up north, and they get forgotten about in Ireland completely. Sorry, guys. So yeah, I think networking events like that are maybe more localized rather than always being in London or Birmingham. Birmingham's 6 hours for me to get to. It's a flight for these guys. So yeah, something like that I think would be really beneficial.
I think just do more events, perhaps. Like I want to attend more. I want to be in the room with these people more. So that'd probably be my suggestion. I loved what we did though when we went to Qatar and had a tour and stuff. So more days like that where you get to meet lots of different people, and that'd be my suggestion.
Yeah. And I think like reach out to the bigger companies as well, like the likes of Mitsubishi Electric, who will support and will want to support you as well. And the likes of all the other companies that are out there as well, Tosh, Panasonic, Danfoss and that. I don't want to start naming just in case I forget people I shouldn't. But yeah, go to the employers and ask them, because it might not be that it's just the engineers. It might be women that are in the offices, that are in the industry, that are doing the quotations, the sales, the selections, the back office support. Or it might be, the engineers on the tools that don't ever hear about these events. So yeah, I'd say reach out to the companies as well and make sure they know you're there and know what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all been fairly echoed fairly well, because even at that, I met Mags through one of the women in HR events. So
yeah, like when we had the Women in Engineering event in Mitsubishi, I asked Ruth to speak because she's the only female service engineer that I knew in Ireland, But that day when you came, there was 3 new apprentices in the room that were already starting their apprenticeship from, they were from a company down in Cork, 3 young girls looking up at Ruth going, look at her, like I can do that. Like, so definitely some events where you have people with experience speaking at it as well,
That's really powerful. I will come back to the audience for questions in a second, but my other question follows on quite nicely from that. So I was going to ask, what can bosses and colleagues and other people within the industry do to support women who are already here, but also to encourage more women into the industry? Obviously, we talked about putting women forward for going into schools and that kind of thing. But is there anything else that you've either experienced or would love to experience in terms of how you're supported?
I think encourage them to go into senior positions, into senior roles. Like we need more women on boards. We need more senior female managers on the higher the higher management team. So encourage them to do that and give them the training that they need for that. Yeah, that's what I would say now.
I'd probably say no matter how big your company is, or if you're a man or a woman, like it is your responsibility. It's every single person's responsibility. It's so easy to come to things like this. And it was the same when I was in Milan. It got to the women's section of the talk, and Colleen Keyworth was counting the number of men that stood up and left. And she said, thanks everyone for staying. No thanks to the 19 people that have just got up and left because you're not interested in what's going on here. And it is, if it can't just be the women shouting for the women, it needs to be the men high up in the companies, across the whole company, really, to change the culture of how you accept them and what you do to encourage them, as you say, into more senior positions. So just take it upon yourself. Like there is absolutely something you can be doing, even if it's reaching out. Like, I don't know, we've got a field piece in the audience, like reaching out to the Women's Network. How can we support you? What can we do? Is anything. I think it's important for big companies to get involved and everybody to take it as their responsibility.
Yeah, and I think it's great that Colleen called that out. I think that's brilliant. And I think there needs to be more of that as well, of saying when people aren't supporting women. I think that's really important.
It was interesting. So actually someone asked a question after the International Women in Cooling had done their presentation. They said, oh, okay, so what are you doing then? Like, what are you doing about the problem? And it was kind of like, well, what are you doing about the problem? Like, we're stood here showing you lots of statistics on where everybody's at across the world in the industries. and we've set up this mentoring network, we've done all these things, and that was the question. So it's a bit of a mind shift that needs to happen, I think, amongst people in companies like that, and especially in that kind of audience where it's like, don't just go home and this isn't your business. It's everybody's business.
There is more and more of us getting there. So I'm not saying it's quite there yet, but we're now queuing for toilets at events, right? When I first started, that didn't happen. I remember it was like the third event I went to, and Juliet actually got up and on stage before she even done any of the awards and went, I've just had to queue for the bathroom. Because usually it's always the men's that have to queue, and we've never had to, and it's getting better. But yeah, we've still got a long way to go. But it's nice to go to the IOR dinners and see almost every table has at least one or two females. And they're not just a token female at the table. It's someone that you've spoken to in the office or someone that you need to get a hold of. And they're there to network. So yeah, it's getting there, but we're still quite a while off.
Anything to add?
No, I think it's been pretty much said.
Okay, so more questions. Steve, did I see you had one?
What's our favourite?
I think you sort of answered it, asked the question. It was about retention, but just on the toilet thing, the women in HVACR, the very successful one in America, was started at the women's toilets at an ASHRAE conference because there was only one toilet for the whole, loads of it. So the women in toilets and associations do go together, but that's something else. No, it was in other engineering professions. You sort of touched on this. The drop-off rate of women, it's the retention rate. The women are coming in and then they're not staying. Are you seeing that in this sector?
I've noticed the opposite. To be fair, I've known quite a lot of men that have left their sales or technical or trainee sales jobs, whereas all 8 women that Sam took to that first training course 9 years ago have all progressed, and we all progressed much faster than our male counterparts. Kat moved up into a completely different role. I moved on. Hayley took on a branch, I think 6 months later. So yeah, we all are progressing faster rather than kind of staying stagnant. I think it's because we've all got a wee bit more drive and push and oomph. But yeah, I think retention's better for us than it is the men. When I was up for the Trainee of the Year awards, when I was getting my vac pump, there was 2 boys that had already left the trade. They just came for the jolly and to get their awards, but they were like, oh, I'm going to sell this because they'd left.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really good question on the retention, because at the event I was at last week, there was a study done from UCD about women that leave engineering roles. And it was really interesting. Some of the reasons why they left was obviously maternity leave. They went and had children, and then they felt awkward, or they didn't have childcare to come back into the industry. So I think we need to look at that, right? So welcoming them back after women go and have children, ensuring that there is childcare, which I think comes back down to legislation and that in the country as well, and the companies that you're working for as well. Like, that's a huge thing. So just making sure that they are welcome back into the industry when they do go and have childcare, and just making it like, it just a normality, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's a huge thing, I think, on retention. Just making sure that there's opportunities there for people that do have children, And that's just one of the things I found. But I think, to look at it closely, you need to look at the statistics of why people are leaving, and then try and get them back,
Brilliant. Any other questions? Anyone else? Okay, Andrew.
I'm aware that as the organizer, I should stand back, but I want to ask a question. No, it's a comment, actually. You mentioned Trainee of the Year, and it's just to flag up Trainee of the Year, and then my former employer, Student of the Year. So those are great opportunities. And from my memory, we didn't see that many women coming in. So it really is something to talk about. It's celebrating work on the tools. And then also to say about World Skills, I don't think we see too many women entering that. And that might be because of the way it's set up, and it's quite a intense competition. What do you think, Lizzie?
I'm not sure. I actually think it's a lack of female apprentices, to be honest. Every college gets the World Skills applications, and every time I see or I turn up to a World Skills event, I'm like, right, so how many engineers we got? And they tell us, and I'm like, right, how many girls? And they're like, none. And there's a severe lack at every college of females. I think Grimsby was the last one that I'd heard of properly. Southampton usually have a couple, Birmingham maybe, but there's a real lack. And it's actually the lecturers that usually put forward the people for WorldSkills. So it's making sure that they're putting through the girls and the guys and not just the guys, because they're the ones that are naming who goes up for it. It's not the apprentices. They don't get to say. They just turn up, and they have to be also under the age limit. That's a major issue with WorldSkills. You have to be under 21 to compete globally. So yeah, you can do the skills fridge, you can do the part before, but you can't do the actual WorldSkills competition in Lyon or wherever it is unless you're under 21.
So I have another question that kind of leads on from that in a way. So how important do you think social media is? And Ruth, I know that you share a lot of your journey on social media, on Instagram. What has been the response like from women who are seeing you doing your thing? We come back to visibilities. How important do you think that is?
I think I wouldn't say that they're shocked, but I think it is just being like, number one, wow, that's a trade, and number two, you're good at your job, you know what you're doing, and just people just experiencing the trade as itself. Like the amount of places that I work, and even at the moment, I might sound stupid, but even like some of the sites you get to see, and even I got to work in Sweden on one of the data centers. Like this trade will take you everywhere. I think there's such a variety of work. And personally, every person that I've dealt with on Instagram has been nothing but engaging and friendly. Most people are just there to help each other. Like I'm in a group chat with the lads. We'll be talking about like any technical help. There's such a good community out there, and I would highly recommend everyone get through social media.
Brilliant. Chloe?
That's why when literally my first day in the industry, I made my Instagram channel The Calling Girl, and I was like, right, let's see who else is out there. And actually, Ruth, you were someone that came up for me that I followed, and is someone that I was like, oh, well, she's doing it. So like, I want to be that one day. I want to be that good one day. And again, you can reach out. There was actually Lady Plumber. I can't remember what her name is, but she was sat there earlier. Another one, even though she's a plumber, like to see that representation for me 18 months ago, it was so important to keep you in the industry, actually, to see that other people can do it and to give you something to strive towards, to drop a line to, just to say, hey, how is it in your country or whatever it might be. I love it for that. And you meet loads of people from that you wouldn't usually talk to, you wouldn't cross paths with. And it's a buzz around this industry in that sense, in that you kind of, because you all love it so much, especially if you're bothered to make an Instagram channel and to be posting on it. And it takes a lot of effort. But if you care about it that much, then you're all going to get on, I think. And that's what I found coming in, as a junior. So
that's brilliant. So we've probably got time for one more question, if anyone has one. If anyone has that's fine, because that is such a nice note to kind of like end on. I think, there's still a lot that we can all do within this industry. And, I think we've had some great discussions here. And I hope all of you, this very popular session, all of you have taken something away from this as well, whether it's, to keep doing what you're doing, or maybe to do more, or speak to more people within your organization, or even going into schools. I think that's such a powerful point. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. Please give our panelists a huge round of applause. Thank you.